Good morning. All right, we'll start in a couple of minutes. Just give everybody a chance to settle in. How's everyone today after, I don't know, many of you were in our healthy communication webinar last night. Lots of food for thought there. Geez. Those Monday night webinars are sure jam-packed with a lot of information to sift through. Hello, good morning, Adam. Yourself a few minutes to, oh, there he is. Take a few breaths, maybe have a drink of tea or water, and we'll open it up again with Mark from the Bill Nelems Pain and Research Center.
Good morning to everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day, and welcome from the Bill Nelems Pain and Research Center on our final week of Nelems' presentation on emotional freedom from fibromyalgia. So if anybody has any questions, it would be a great time to ask them. I'll do my best to answer them, but just a couple of things, just reflecting back on our experiences with fibromyalgia. It's probably one of the most important medical conditions, if you want to call it a medical condition, that there seems to be a really strong emotional component, not only probably contributing to the fibromyalgia, but patients with fibromyalgia often experience difficulty getting across to people what they're going through, what they've suffered, and this in itself creates problems because they feel unheard and frustrated. But the other side of the coin, the chicken and the egg, is that from the research, many patients with fibromyalgia, there is sometimes a history of a trauma. Sometimes that's a physical trauma, an emotional trauma, some form of abuse sometimes, both physical, mental, sexual. It varies. Not everybody with fibromyalgia, obviously, but I'm just reflecting back on what we've seen. So I think the title, Emotional Freedom from Fibromyalgia, says a lot. I think it's really important, and until patients can better manage and maybe understand or have a better insight as to what's going on, it's really hard to manage fibromyalgia.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm just thinking about what the possible connection often is. I mean, I'm coming from a trauma therapist background, so I'm always looking for these connections between trauma that we've all experienced in some extent, little t, big T trauma, and asking and having healthy communication skills. Like often just even we don't develop them. I mean, many people, I want to say almost most, are not taught. But it's even more difficult, I think, for some when you're also healing through trauma, to ask to be heard, or to be validated, or have your needs met, say from, a partner, or from the medical community. And there were some comments in our webinar last night that really stuck with me around, oh my goodness, the misunderstanding around fibromyalgia. People haven't been believed. I mean, we're lucky in this clinic, I think, like, you guys down there are very validating. This is a thing, but often people don't even believe it. Anyway, a lot of comments that I was getting around just how invalidating it feels not to be believed. Yeah.
I think that is a big part of it. And that's why I sort of bring it up. There's often trauma going in to fibromyalgia, often. And when you use the word trauma, I mean emotional, physical, just often there's sometimes a trigger, a motor vehicle accident, and then there's often trauma as a result of exactly what you just said,
Yeah.
It's not like you can show your friends your broken arm and they'll say, oh my God, that must be terrible. I hope it gets better. Most people question the validity of what you have.
You can't see it. And
so there's it's a multifaceted issue, and there's no diagnostic test for fibromyalgia. It's like you can't send you to the lab and it comes back positive. And the treatments, again, there's no magic medication, procedure, intervention, etc. A lot of it is understanding what you're struggling with and finding tools that help you to manage it better.
Yeah.
And the emphasis being on and I always say to patients, or not always, I try and say, if we can turn down some of your symptoms or help you manage them, we won't be able to maybe cure them necessarily, but so that you gain a better understanding and you feel that you have better control and management. And it's not just the pain, it's the function. There's a lot of loss of function that goes with fibromyalgia. So, everybody gets wrapped up on, what's your pain? Is it any less? It's not just the pain, it's the function. It's equally, if not more important sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So, someone saying that naltrexone low dose is helpful.
It is in some patients. Again, it's not a panacea for everybody. Some patients respond quite favorably to naltrexone, but again, it doesn't work for everybody. And,
one of those trial and error things, I guess. Hey, with medications.
The other thing with fibromyalgia is that patients, because fibromyalgia is a hypersensitivity of the nervous system, patients are usually, and I generalize, exquisitely sensitive to medications. They have more side effects, more reactions. So the dictum of start low and go slow when introducing medications couldn't be more relevant here. I usually would start very low, go very slow in increasing doses because patients are way more sensitive. If the usual dose of something is X, start at half X or a quarter of X and work up. They've usually had fibromyalgia for a very long time. You're not going to fix it in a week. So start low, go slow. And sometimes doctors look at the product monograph and said, well, the starting dose of this is this. So we'll just go even lower, go slower. That's the only other useful piece of advice I could give, for patients and start one medication at a time, maybe, so that you can then see which ones you tolerate.
Right. So like not only you're sensitive on the outside,
Mhm.
you know, but you're sensitive on the inside, like all your neuroreceptors are at a hypersensitive sensitized state. So you're gonna feel the effects of medications and the side effects
Yeah, I
more.
mean, I can't honestly think of a fibromyalgia patient that I've had where, you know, they haven't experienced some side effects, or it's been more challenging introducing medications for that exact reason.
Right.
You know, it's part of the whole syndrome. I mean,
Right.
and
Right.
just being aware of it.
Okay. So it's nothing, there's nothing inherently wrong with you if
No.
you're having a lot of side effects. Yeah, you're not alone. And I feel like this is a conversation that needs more time, but we got lots to get to today. So
Uh-huh.
I'm
Yeah,
going to take
sure.
that, and a number of people have asked again for a trauma webinar. So I
Mhm.
think it's probably time to talk about trauma again.
Absolutely. Okay. So thanks very
Great.
much for presenting today. Okay. Have a good day.
Right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Oh, great. So we are, hopefully everybody can hear me, maybe see me. We're in our final week today of this, I did it as a 6-week class. We are being recorded because I have a feeling I've put a lot into this particular week. I might run a little bit overtime. Just take note maybe of when you have to leave, and when you're going, you might watch the webinar and just fast forward to that time. We've worked through a number of things each week in this class when it comes to, I call it emotional freedom, the emotional healing. Really, it's healing. And as a result, healing emotionally can so often help to heal or turn down the volume of discomfort, of pain. All right, so let's just take what I call the safety break. And that means, you know, when pain tells us we're in danger, we need to turn on the safety brake. So wherever you are right now, in your space, in your chair, on your couch, on your bed, just bring your attention in towards yourself and just take 3 deeper, perhaps if you can, slower breaths. See what that feels like. I'm just making that transition from whatever you were doing prior to this, whatever it took to get you here, just to your own breath, your own body. And I always let it go with a sigh when I really need to kind of release, relax your jaw, maybe your shoulders. See what you're holding there in the way of tension. You might feel your feet on the floor, on the ground, here, right now, in this class, in this moment. Maybe release your morning so far, clearing some space to let the next thing appear, which is this class. Okay, so I am going to run through some things, and don't worry, you don't have to take notes. You'll get the recording. So some key points throughout this class is that we tend to repress or resist emotions that we have learned through that are not okay or safe. And we learn that really young. That's allowed, that's not allowed. That one's not allowed, that one's not allowed. And so we naturally begin to gear our lives down that same hallway, that same corridor. We usually have a whole lot of different emotions about the same person or the same situation. It's rarely one when we start really, really digging, or not even really digging, just noticing that, yeah, I'm really angry about what this person did, but I'm also feeling really hurt or betrayed and some sadness. So looking at the many different textures or variations that come up, and why would we do that? Because when we can notice and name it, we tend to we have a much better chance of being able to heal and release it. Because this energy tends, if it gets repressed, gets stored in our nervous system, it starts to create a lot of tension and pain. And if you've ever had that experience of being able to release something, even if it's releasing, the weight of a trauma, maybe in counseling or even in a conversation, or you will be able to literally get something off your chest, you'll know what I mean by that. Adverse childhood experiences do set us up for more pain and illness. That being said, I want you to remember that it's never one direct line, because we also have many examples of people that have had incredibly challenging childhoods and have been able to move through that. And we know that through one of the biggest studies, if not the biggest study ever in this area, was the ACEs study, ACEs study, that really followed people for a long time and saw that those with more challenging childhoods kind of were set up in a way for more pain, more chronic illness. However, the good news is these childhood experiences, I see it every day, can be processed and re-seen, let go. And let go, what I mean by that is not forgotten, but kind of put back where they should be, as a memory, as a stage, as a part of your life that is no longer alive in the moment. And we know that people who do have fibromyalgia have a greater rate of past trauma. And again, there's always a percentage of people who don't. So it's never a direct line. You're on the right track here in healing your pain, along with all your other tools. The other tools that we know for pain, for fibromyalgia in particular: nutrition, gentle exercise and movement seems to be key. Sleep management. If you haven't had a sleep study and you've got sleep problems, please call your GP today. Don't settle for less than optimal sleep. It's always something we can improve on. Yoga and mindfulness practices, and getting good support. Good support that feels supportive. And so these are all the other areas that I just want to highlight before we dive into today, and just see, if there's something that's worked for you that is not listed here, please post it in the chat box, because we are really all in this together and learning from each other. And often people have ideas or things that they've tried that I haven't thought of that worked for them. So please, as we go along, we're here to help each other too. Today, we're going to talk, I'm going to kind of put two classes into one, so hold on for the ride here. We're going to talk a little bit about shame that we pick up throughout our lives, and whether it's, sometimes you can feel ashamed in the medical system. Let's face it. I'm not afraid to say that. And also from our families or other situations, and chronic pain being such a invisible and silent condition that sometimes we can also even feel ashamed of that, and that was never your fault. We're going to talk about thoughts and beliefs, healthy communication we did last night, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. A little bit about gratitude, and overcoming barriers and beliefs about yourself, and perhaps writing a new story. And that may be just a new way of thinking, or actually physically writing a new story. And again, we always kind of touch on feelings about ending this class, and if you're wondering what's next. All right, let's dive into one of my favorite topics, thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotions both contain energies. They're like poof, electrical activity, if you say, like energies in your body. Emotions, we can feel it. Thoughts are like a little, when you have a thought, it kind of registers as a little electric, I'm looking for a different word, bolt of electricity in your brain. There are things that happen actually physically. The mind does make up stories about why we feel. Why we feel? Why we feel the way that we do. So if I'm, say, for example, I'm waking up and I feel a lot of tension, and I realize that I have a lot of anger, for example, first thing in the morning, the mind will automatically get on board and try to figure out, explain, and find a reason for it. It's just trying to help us, but it's not always helpful because the stories that it comes up with are not always true. Have you noticed that we can have so many thoughts in a day? Many of them are repetitive. They're yesterday's thoughts. They're the same ones from 10 years ago. Have you noticed that? They can be we can cycle around negative thoughts, and many of them are not true now. So that's an important part. I didn't know this, that there is evidence that the emotion or the gut feeling that we get in our body actually comes before the thinking. The thinking tries to make sense of it. So a lot of self-help, and I'm not, I'm not against mindset work, changing thoughts, because that can be really helpful. But it's also important to recognize that that there are some emotions or gut feelings or sensations that can come even before the thought. And so if I walk into a room, and if you've ever had that feeling like, oh, I can feel the energy in this room, something feels like off or not right, and you can feel it in your body, it's amazing how your mind will automatically try to explain that. Either, it might be something like, oh, it's because, such and such is here. That must be the reason. May or may not be true. Or maybe, oh, I've got that gut feeling. It must have been what I ate for breakfast. And so the mind just gets so busy trying to figure things out, when sometimes what's asking is for an emotion or a feeling to just simply be felt. So I'm going to encourage you to notice the story you're telling yourself and to question it. Is that true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? Can I, one of the things that came up last night was, that person doesn't hear me. They don't care about me. So that might be a thought. That might be a theme. You can ask yourself, is that actually true? That they don't care about me? Right now, I'm feeling unheard. Can I absolutely know that's true? Sometimes it's a real miscommunication or a difference in opinion or a body language that gives us that impression that that is true. And in fact, it may or may not be, right? So how do you think, feel, behave when you believe that thought? If I'm running with that, they just don't care about me, chances are I'm going to feel angry or hurt, betrayed. I'm going to feel small. I'm going to think about all those times where I tried to help them out and they, all those times, that kind of almost going into that victim mentality. They don't care about me anyway. And my behavior will likely be to either perhaps be hostile towards them. I don't care about them either. And then it just goes on and on and on. Maybe withdrawing, maybe being more angry. And I'm going to encourage you to go right back to that thought and just, is that true? And who would I be? This is from the work of someone called Byron Katie, which I absolutely love. Who would I be if I didn't have that thought? So this thought is a puff of energy, electricity going through my mind right now. And I'm still here in my body. What if I let that thought go? Who would I be if I was incapable of thinking that thought, having that perception? Chances are most people answer that with, I would be free. I would be free to choose. I would be free to have many more options at my fingertips, and I would just move through my life. This is big work right here, by the way, dealing and coping and questioning our thoughts and beliefs. There we go, Byron Katie. And if you're interested in her, I encourage you to look up some of her work. All right. So thoughts might feel really real, but are they true is the question to always be asking. I'm going to have a terrible day today. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. This day is going to go sideways. That feels really real. That feels really real, but I can't know that. Sometimes speaking from my own experience, sometimes those days that start off on the real wrong foot, sometimes they can actually work out to be some of the best days. So mind your thoughts and where they go down that rabbit hole. So let's move on to beliefs. A belief is a thought that you keep on thinking. So beliefs can be healthy, they can be helpful, or they can be negative and self-destructive, And as we dig a little bit deeper from our thoughts, if I'm thinking that thought, he doesn't care about me, or she doesn't care about me, and that becomes a belief. And sometimes that can come as you drill down. They don't care about me. People don't care about me. And it sometimes gets bigger, even to I'm not worthy of care. So I just give you that as an example of drilling down. There's lots of things you can do to drill down and find your core beliefs, but you might already know them. To ask, what are your core beliefs about yourself or about your life? And I recommend a whole lot of self-compassion around this. Lots of self-compassion. And that I've never worked with anyone who hasn't dug down to some core belief that they developed, in their childhood. And when we find that, it's not a bad thing. It's a really, really empowering, great thing, because then you have a chance to work with it. And we all have them. So we can ask, this is one way. What have you come to believe about yourself? I am, and when you answer that, you'll probably know right away. And to really kind of question that, if it is a core belief that is not supportive to you in your growth. Many people have very deep-seated fundamental core beliefs or rules that they operate by that prevent them from growing or moving forward. And I've got a picture here of a moldy loaf of bread, and I treat it exactly like that. When you find that there is mold, it's a good thing that you notice, because now you know that you're not going to eat that, and you're probably going to get rid of it or throw it in the compost. And it's the same with core beliefs. If you find one, it's like, oh, I'm really glad I noticed that. Could have eaten some moldy bread, but now I have a chance to release it. So really lots of self-compassion around that. And I've never found a core belief that if it's not supportive of you in your growth and your healing, it's actually not true. It's actually an adaptive response that you developed as a child that felt right and safe and protective at the time. So there's no criticism here. So some examples that might be, these are engines that might be running in the background. And when we bring them to the foreground, we really want to question them. Like, I must be perfect, like that perfection. I cannot fail. Well, you want to question failing as a part of so-called failing. I don't think there's really any failure. You try things, some work, some don't. It's part of being human, and we cannot get things perfect. And so you just question whether that's something in your background. I must look after other people before myself. Well, that's a bit of programming. That's a lot of programming that somehow you became trained to focus externally on the needs of other people when you've got someone sitting right here that needs you, right here in your body. And when I see people making that switch, then things start happening. Good things. I cannot show emotions or cry. Where did we ever pick that up? Right? And I know, it's true for so many of us, men and women, that our emotional bodies got squished into a tiny ball. And there's not a lot of validation out there or encouragement, only in your safe circles, usually, unless you're lucky enough, where you can cry because you're sad, or you can show emotions without feeling judged. I can't trust other people. That is usually a trauma response. I can't trust people, or I have to do everything myself. That is usually, a trauma response learned, like, it's up to me. I got to do this by myself. Nobody has to do this by themselves. Nobody has to do this life by themselves. This is one to just look at. I'm just putting it out there. I don't deserve a good, happy life. So this is where I see this come up a lot, is when there's something really good that happens, something that brings joy or delight or surprise. And if that ever happens to you, and then there's another part that comes along and shuts that down, you might want to question that. Again, I'm just putting it all out there, and you guys will just plant your own seeds and go your own way with this. But I often hear people say, particularly if you're struggling with ongoing pain, that, I really, I can't embrace joy or pleasure while I have pain. And I want to tell you that you can, and you deserve to. It's hard at times, but there are all kinds of ways, like this little cup of tea I got right here, that you can, because you deserve pleasure, joy, and all those things, even in the face of pain. And with that, we start to actually counteract a little bit more that experience of pain. That's a big one right there. So if you find, oh, I feel really good, and then something comes along and says, no, don't be doing that. Just notice that. I'm not worthy. I don't know where humans, you drill down, we often come up with this, and I'm going to put in here that in our, we have a society that will confirm that for you. If you have a seed of that in yourself, even if you didn't start out with it, which you didn't come into this world as a baby thinking I'm not worthy, but we live in a society where in some places, in some industries, I guess, rely on you feeling that, because then We're talking the beauty industry, the self-help industry, the lots of industries. They rely on telling you that that you're not worthy, and that's very different than I'm going to the pain clinic because I want to heal. It's a very different thing. Talking deep stuff here today. So maybe everybody just take a deep breath. Let's do a safety break. 3 deep breaths. Muscle tension. And notice, feet on the floor, that right now you're safe. Okay. Another example is it's all my fault. If you have a tendency to take everything personally, that might be an ongoing belief in your background, running in the background. So the question is, can you drill down to dig out an old core belief? And there's nothing wrong with your belief. You just picked it up along the way as a strategy. And this doesn't have to be heavy work. You might just pick one and that kind of resonates with you. And just kind of look at it and, wow, yeah, how does that affect my life? And then put it aside. But the knowledge, the awareness is really what we're going for. You might ask, how has this belief run a thread through your life patterns? And one example I always think of was somebody that I knew a long time ago. We'll call him Peter, never his real name. Had an ongoing core belief of being taken advantage of because he was bullied as a young child. So when you're waking up in the morning as a child and you know that going to school is not going to be fun, and already your body, it does not feel safe. Feeling safe is no longer your baseline. You're going to develop that hyper awareness, hyper vigilance for people around you, and that feeling that he had of feeling always taken advantage of. So this really became a problem in the workplace, as I recall, and also in his marriage, where if there was a slight a negative, even a facial expression from his boss, he would take it very personally and perceive it as the theme was, I'm being taken advantage of. Now, when he was able to dig that out and realize where it came from, he was able to see this theme. We all have these themes that life shows us. And wherever you're having trouble in your life right now, you might ask, is this, it might be just what it is, or is this a theme? And just dig down. And when he was able to see that, he could, rather than retreating into fear, he could stay present and interactive with his boss and with his wife, and move through that to prove to himself that he wasn't actually being taken advantage of. Great question. How do we let go of perfectionism? Yeah, where do we begin? How to retrain the mind? Yes, this is a really, really common a hypervigilance to control things. Yes. So when we start to move in very small ways of noticing when it might be just one thing you start out with, of letting go control of. Now, I'll give you an example of this. I worked with a woman once who had a very, very high stressed nervous system, trying to control everything that happened in the home, at work, with her kids, sort of micromanaging everything. And you can imagine the effect on pain in the nervous system, the anxiety and stress around that. What she started doing for her healing was leaving one, that might sound funny, but leaving one dirty dish in the sink at night. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but with her, every time she went by, she was like, oh, I just want to clean that. I just, but she was able to notice everything that came up. I feel unsafe. I'm not perfect. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to lose control. All those things from that one dirty dish had a chance to come up. And she could see that she could still live, be safe, and also have a dirty dish in the sink. So that's how small we can start. Because behind perfectionism, there's usually a lot of fear, perhaps shame, maybe guilt, and all those things had a chance to come up and be released with her through that one dirty dish. And she could see that she could still survive. As a child, it was absolutely a coping strategy. And so to let go of those coping strategies can be quite scary. All right, healing old beliefs. So this is something that you could work on. You might write or reflect on something you haven't before. Maybe there's something new coming up for you right now. And really, really question a negative core belief, such as I deserve, or there's something fundamentally wrong with me, I'm not good enough. All these things are such shared human core beliefs that are 100% false. Just let that sink in. They're things that we've inherited. There's a lot of evidence around intergenerational beliefs and traumas. We live in a society that doesn't always feel safe. And we often bring that back on ourselves, particularly as children. It must be me. There must be something wrong with me. Yeah. So you can ask, is this keeping you stuck in some way in your life now? Recognize that it's a false download. And there'll be all parts of you that come up, right? Maybe even right now, as I'm saying this, that are probably getting loud and saying, yeah, I don't know if you should be believing this. And, we don't want to be letting go of that belief. It's okay. Those are all ways also that are trying to keep you safe. But you can ask, what would my life look like if you knew this belief was false? And allow yourself, if there's maybe an exercise to do later, is to allow yourself to imagine how you would move through your life without that belief. When we imagine, our body actually believes it's happening. So as you imagine that, you'll be more likely to move through your life as that. All right, just any questions around that? A lot of stuff. All right, we're going to move into the next half here. I did want to bring this up. I'm just thinking back to my own extended family and how there was a conflict 25 years ago, and there are two people that are still stuck back there, still won't talk to each other, still avoid each other. Yeah, it's tense. And you can imagine those nervous systems, how much energy that they spend on this grudge when they actually feel like they're protecting themselves. Grudges cause pain. So how many people do you know who hold grudges? You might know a few. And what feelings arise as a result, if you are one of them, what feelings arise as a result of holding on to that grudge? And you may feel often you have to hold on to it. That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to let go of it, but to start thinking about, how can I move through maybe, with someone, with a counselor, through some forgiveness of myself or others, to start letting that go and healing it. Your life is way too short, way too short. So often these experiences are private, and often we carry things with us that we may have never shared with another human being. And I always go from this to the work of Brené Brown. Highly recommend that shame, when we feel it inside ourselves, cannot survive being spoken and met with empathy. And here's where I'm going to encourage you to either write to yourself with empathy or to perhaps tell someone, to express what might be held very tightly inside of your physical body, inside of your nervous system. And, we keep secrets, because of guilt, shame, embarrassment. Sometimes there's a risk involved. So we tell no one, or only a few people, or only part of the story. This is from Dr. Howard Schubiner's work. Keeping things private or secret is a major stressor and can harm your health for various reasons. Secrets don't tend to go away. They do tend to get bigger. And I've had, I can think of so many people that I've seen in their 70s or their 80s come to me and say, I've never told anyone this before, but I've thought about it every day that it's happened since I was a child. That's no small statement, right? It's never too late to heal. Our mind has to both monitor for the secret and keep it from slipping out or being disclosed, right? Hypervigilance. It decreases our willpower later for healthy things because we're already tired. And it's physiologically arousing, that fight, flight, freeze. And that takes away from our immune system functioning. And we never get a chance to see, if I say this, that we're accepted and valued, even with sharing the secret. And it can also be a major cause of pain. So, and again, this is from Howard Schubiner. It's vital to try and share some personal things with others. And we'll get into who. It almost always works out surprisingly well. So shame is, in all my experience, it's the most difficult, most painful emotion. And it comes along with a sense of self that I'm not good enough. Shame is, again, like any emotion, it's got a purpose. If we didn't have shame in our society, we wouldn't have, the guilty conscience. We wouldn't have, people behaving in a way that is healthy for society. So we need some, but too much or toxic shame is not healthy and not appropriate anymore to the situation. And it's a really unfortunate consequence. And it's overly critical of your entire self. Doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room to improve, right? Sometimes it results from some perceived defect about yourself. And it makes you want to hide or avoid closeness. I taught a course once, and it was probably, I didn't know it at the time, my most popular course ever. Who knew? It was called Lifting Above Shame. I didn't know if anybody was going to come. It was a 6-week course, 5-week course. And starting to have those conversations in a safe environment started to free people up to see it was never theirs to begin with, and they're not alone. Because it often keeps us from truly knowing other people, and truly being intimate with other people when there's always a thing, yeah, there's like the elephant in the room. So again, the work of Brené Brown, shame thrives in secrecy and cannot survive in the light. When it's brought out to light, and we see this, with politicians that have done something naughty, and they come out and they say, they can either choose to keep denying, or they come out and they say, yeah, I did this thing. I'm so sorry, whether they really are or not, and then it's out And then that nobody can ever hold that against them again because it's already out. And I don't mean go go public, because that's way too much overexposure. Here's where it gets interesting. Choose carefully. If this is resonating for you and you're like, wow, I got this thing in my throat and I really, I feel like it wants to come out somewhere, or this, feeling in my body, and just really feel like it's time. Okay? There's 6 types of people not to share your story with. And I encourage you to watch. There's a 5-minute interview on Oprah with Brené Brown that's just awesome in this department. I think it's called six types of people not to share your story with. With the friend who needs you to support them. So you tell them something and they go into a tailspin about how difficult that was for them to hear that. Those friends, that's probably not the one to go to, because then you're going to start taking care of them. The friend that responds with sympathy, like, oh, you poor old thing, or poor little thing, it's not really empathy. Sympathy is different than empathy. And that can often make us feel worse. Like, I'm not a poor thing. I just got this thing that I want to express. A friend who feels let down or disappointed that you're not perfect. It's like, wait a minute, you had these things happen? No, that happened to you? No way. Like that kind of thing. Like, not you. Yes, me. I'm not perfect, and everybody has things that have happened in their lives. Nobody gets through without. Those friends, like, it's like you've disappointed them. Or how did you let this happen? What were you doing at the time? How did you interact with them? Yeah, that's a whole other level. Oh, darling, it's not that bad. Look at the bright side of things. I have people like that in my life. It's like, oh yeah, but look how the sun's shining. And it's like, yeah, but I got this thing that I want to tell you. I've got this, thing I want to get off. Oh yes, but look at everything that's right in your life. Those are not the people that really feel you feel validated with, or the one that one-ups you. Oh, that's nothing. Listen to what happened to me. And I'm kind of giggling because I'm thinking about scenarios where this has happened, and you just the people in your life to go to, and the people to not share with. Again, it relates back to our webinar from last night. All right, how are we doing out there? Are we okay? All right. Well, it's just all human stuff. All right, so let's talk for a moment about the negativity bias, because I don't know that everybody knows this. So I want to just make sure, if you don't know this, that you do. That our brains are naturally geared to focus on the negative. So if I look back, say for example, I've had maybe, let's just guess, 10 job evaluations in my life. Okay. Let's say 9 of them were awesome, were really great, did a great job. And there was one comment on one of them that could have been perceived as being a criticism. Do you think your mind is going to focus on, the 9 great ones, or the one comment on the one that could be perceived as a criticism? I think you know the answer to that. The mind will focus on what's not right. So we have to make a very, very conscious effort, particularly in the face of pain, without ignoring, without denying or minimizing, how we feel. And there's all kinds of other things going on in our lives as well. Okay, so it's evolutionary and it's meant to keep us safe from threat. So if our ancestors were so busy focusing on the beautiful flowers, they might not see that bear, that woolly mammoth coming over the hill. They couldn't afford to be focused on the good to the exclusion of the negative. They had to be focused on the threat. So we have to consciously balance the brain scale. And this is, again, particularly true with pain. I only bring gratitude in here now. I know some of you had gratitude practices that were really, really benefited you. I've had some emails around that. I'm bringing it in now as a very valuable tool, but I also really recognize that it can be used and it has been taught in a way that I look at as bypassing. So, and that's that friend that says, oh yes, but look at all the good things you have in your life. That's not helpful. Gratitude allows us to widen our scope that includes what's not going well, but also balances out that negativity bias to what is already good. What is supporting you in your life? And you might take a moment right now to just recognize if you're here, you have a computer, you're breathing, you probably have food and drink, you likely have electricity, you most likely have a home and a roof over your head, probably have some heat, you might have a pet. We could go on and on and on. And these are the things that when they're not here, then we notice them. So the reason I'm teaching this now is to encourage you to, when you go down the rabbit hole of the negativity bias, so much compassion for yourself as a person whose body is in pain, right? And this, not but and to include the other things that if you're breathing, as John Kabat-Zinn says, there's still way more right with you than wrong with you. So when you're in pain for any significant length of time, the pain and problems, right? Is anybody with me on this? Often become all that you can think about. Wake up with it, go to bed with it. Pain, thoughts about pain, feelings can easily take over your life to the point where you can feel like there's nothing left, like it's this thing. So it helps to be able to pay attention to the things in your life that are working and are good. And one step in this direction is to give thanks, as we just did, for the positives in your life. This is not positive thinking. I'm not a big, positive thinking, just think positive and everything will, your pain will go away. That doesn't tend to happen. It's balancing out what we tend to do with what is the true whole picture. And it does have a positive effect in our neurochemistry, in our brain's activity, and therefore in our body. Because gratitude does change our brain. It does change, even if it's temporarily, it starts creating new pathways. All right, so we're coming into the end here towards 11. I'm going to go a little bit over time. No worries if you come back to watch the recording. So what I would encourage you to do is make a list of things that you're grateful, thankful, or appreciative of. That can be in itself hugely inspiring. Include anything you can think of. Again, having a roof over your head, food to eat, sun rises. Apparently each day the sun keeps rising and setting. A color, I'm not sure what I meant there. Maybe this particular color you like. I don't know what I meant when I wrote that. Friends, family, the people in your life that you're grateful to travel this journey with. That if they weren't here, you might feel a hole in your life. Imagine if that person wasn't here. And, the day will come where one of you is not here. That's just a fact. So how can we bring that into today, if you do appreciate them, to perhaps let them know that. And when we let someone know, we love them, we appreciate them, we get the benefit of the serotonin, the oxytocin, those chemicals, the love, caring, bonding chemicals released in ourselves, as well as them. And here's another bit of research that blew me away. Not only when you do a compassionate act for someone, you get that burst of feel-good chemicals. That person gets the burst of feel-good chemicals, and so does everybody who is watching. So when you watch a movie or you see an image of somebody being loving or helpful or caring, you also benefit. So when we do that in our lives, perhaps in front of children, or maybe not in front of anyone, just we are so benefiting everyone that's there. It's a ripple effect. So consider including things for which you may only be partially grateful. For example, difficult people or things that may have taught you important lessons. Yeah, we can do that too, right? That person was really difficult at work, but I guess I knew, I grew, I learned how to set boundaries. Things like that. And you might review your list every day, or add more, or simply write or meditate every day on what comes up that particular day. Please add that into your life. It can make a big difference. Healthy communication. As I said, I'm not going to spend too much time. We talked about it last night. When we get really honest with ourselves, really honest about what we need, it's much easier to be honest with others. And then set clear, loving boundaries that really look after yourself and express our own needs. We often need to change the way that I'm going to say we interact or communicate in relationships. Right? That's a big topic. Healthy communication may change your relationship, or it may not. However, it will change you and your stress level. And healthy communication expresses your feelings and needs. It's respectful of the other person's needs and feelings without taking responsibility for them. That's a big statement I just said. Without taking responsibility for them. So all of this is coming towards this. When you own your own story, this is where I'm at. This is the things that I experience as painful. These are the things that are good in my life right now. Right now, you get to write the ending of how this goes. Writing a new story can be a big struggle for some people, is whether and how much they want to change themselves right now. And some people have lived for a long time with a particular identity. This is natural. And it pays to just look at what's coming up for me is like, it pays to look at who you think you are right now, such as a pain patient. I'm a pain patient, or I'm a pain survivor, or I have another identity. I'm a caretaker, I'm a victim, I'm a loner, I'm a super mom. All those things are identities that we may or may not want, and they can be very fixed, such as I don't do taxes. And I'm saying that like, I don't do numbers. I'm not good with numbers. That used to be a big belief of mine. It was just a belief. When I actually said, why don't I? Am I really not good with numbers? Where did that come from? And I actually started working with numbers. I really actually enjoyed it. So see what identities keep you stuck and question them. What is my identity? What label am I giving myself? What label would others give me? And does it put you in a box that you'd rather not be in? Wow, it's really windy out there. Is anybody else feeling that? It's like, whoa. Geez, this like trees floating around. Is anybody else here in Kelowna? My goodness. So can you rewrite your story with a vision of your future? Here's where things get really interesting, where we super step into, oh my gosh, there was just a big crash outside. Excuse me a moment. Okay. Can't see anything. All right. Can you rewrite your story, full responsibility, with a vision of the future? And this doesn't mean, oh, I'm pain-free, I've been healed, I'm, things that you may bring that in just to your imagination to see what it would feel like. But looking back, you might use sentences when you're talking about yourself. If you're going through a difficult time, well, this is what I learned, such as this is what she learned. He went through this and he survived and he came out the other end learning this or that. Wow, it was really tough. It was really tough back then when, for example, I had kids and I had pain and I didn't know if I was going to make it. I remember that then. I grew. It wasn't perfect and it was messy at times. But I realized that I could do it. I had more strength than I thought I could. We don't know how strong we are until we really need it, right? The hardest part of my journey was this. And my lessons were this. My hurts were this. So again, getting a little distance, a little bit more objective about it. These are real. And also these were my support people that I loved and cherished so much. Holy cow. Anybody else seeing that outside? All right, here we are. Can you change your idea of yourself? Some people prefer terms like survivor, super strong person, a human who's faced many challenges. Are you seeing it, Carla? Holy moly. And it almost looks like it's snowing now. Okay. I'm someone who really came to terms with this. And you might have more ways of looking at your situation so that you don't feel so stuck in it right now, that this is who I am, these are my problems, and there's no movement, right? Okay, on my very last slide here for this group. And I want to just acknowledge, if there's feelings that come up around ending. And it's common to experience a mixture of feelings about any endings. Everything is temporary. Everything ends, new things begin. Right now, I can see that, our summer is clearly ending and something else is beginning. And it looks to me like winter. There might be relief that this is over. Maybe gratitude that's helped. Disappointment, you might not have improved as much as you thought possible. Or even anger at the leader or the program that you were forced to end. And that, that might be here. It might be also, to acknowledge that maybe in other programs or other ththings you're involved with in your life. Sadness about leaving, fear about facing the future. All of these things. Just take a breath and make space for it all. So I would be really curious, if you had any questions or comments as we wrap up this series, knowing that we're going to bring in again in January, taking all of your feedback. I'm looking at a lot of research in this area that looks very, very promising, quite interesting. And we're going to revamp it and bring an even better program to you in January. And so let's take a little safety break. Just notice, take a 3 deep breaths. What might be coming up for you right now? Notice any muscle tension. Let it go. Know that you're safe. Yes, absolutely. You can retake the program, and you guys will be even better set up to take it because you already have, a bit of foundation. And I find the more foundation you have, the more, the farther you can go each time. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I do want to say is if there's any particular topic that is, I really am reaching out to people, to patients who come to the clinic to find out what is it that you're struggling with. What would you like to see addressed in a class, in a webinar, a particular topic? I'm hearing trauma and pain seems to come up, but do give it some thought, really going into yourself. And what is it that I really need? What do I want to know more about? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're welcome to the person that just wrote to me. Yes, this again, this will be offered again in January. Everyone, of course, everyone is welcome from all different worldviews. And yeah, try to keep it open to anybody and everybody. The only common denominator is really that we're moving through in this class fibromyalgia. Yeah. Okay. Well, I thank you for joining me on this journey. Probably have my emails if you have any ideas for me. Again, please do send them my way. And I look forward to doing this class again, maybe with you in January. All right. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful, well, windy and wet day here. Yeah, so the question, what was that medication? It was, let me just look back. Naltrexone was the medication that was mentioned earlier. Yeah, it might be worth mentioning that to your doctor if you're looking for medications to try. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everyone, enjoy your day. See you again soon. Bye for now.